I actually became a professional footballer after my second year at university. And I had a big meeting so I moved from Cambridge City, who were a part-time team, to Cambridge United, who were a full-time professional football club. And I had a big conversation with them and a few meetings with them about whether they'd let me finish my last year at uni. And again, invited them up to Loughborough so they could check out the facilities and meet the coach that I could potentially train with up there, instead of going back every day to train with them. And I'm very, very lucky that they agreed to let me finish my degree and get my training with Loughborough, and then essentially just go back on Saturdays and play for them in a match.
From Coordinate Sports, it's The Drive Phase, a show about sports founders, leaders and experts and the stories behind their business journeys. Our guest this episode is Robbie Simpson, founder and managing director of Life After Professional Sport, or LAPS. He launched LAPS with a mission to fill the gap in support he found when his career as a professional footballer hung in the balance. Since launching, LAPS has grown to a full-service platform with 5,000 plus current and ex-athlete members from ages 18 to 60 years. Robbie is passionate about forward planning, bringing his skills as a financial planning specialist and experience as a footballer to create an offer that supports athletes at a vulnerable time in their lives. During the episode, we discuss Robbie's early life and career and how he's used his experience to launch and scale the organisation. Enjoy the show. I'm delighted to welcome Robbie Simpson, founder and managing director of Life After Professional Sport, or LAPS, the career resource platform helping the transition for sports stars when their competition days come to an end. Robbie, thanks for your time. It's really good to have you on the show today. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, James. Looking forward to it.
We always start, we'll go all the way back just to kind of give to be fair, a lot of our listeners might know you for your football career, and we'll talk about that in detail, but try to go all the way back to your childhood. And I know football will have definitely played a huge part in that, but how would you describe your childhood?
I loved it. I was the youngest child of 5. So
you got away with murder then, yeah?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I did, yeah. But I loved interacting with my brothers and sisters. My mum was a housewife by the time she had me anyway. My dad worked in the city for Barclays for 40 years, but I couldn't have wished for a better family really to grow up in.
So you growing up in like Hertfordshire there, I'm guessing it'd be 5 siblings or 4 siblings. It's been super competitive, right?
Very. Yeah, very. We're renowned for being a competitive family amongst all of our friends. So yeah, very competitive. Yeah, grew up in Knebworth in Hertfordshire, good area. Obviously commutable for my dad to go into the city. But yeah, lovely area, lovely village. We lived just down the road from the Rec, we used to call it, the Big Rec in Knebworth. So was down there, straight after school most days until it got dark.
And is that where football came in? Was it like a family thing or more from school, I guess? Was obviously school normally shapes it in terms of your peers and getting into sport and PE and stuff. Did you say it was from school or more from family?
More from family, I think. So Knebworth Youth Football Club used to play their games down at the Big Rec. And my dad was the chairman of that youth football club until I finished playing for them, really. And my brother obviously played for them already from a young age. I was already playing with him and his teams when they used to have a kickabout from the age of 3, really. I can remember kicking a ball about at the age of 3 with my brother and his mates. My brother's, how old is he now? I think he's 8 years older than me. So, yeah, having a kickabout with 11-year-olds when I was 3 years old. Yeah, and I think everything that I did in my own spare time was just play football when I was younger. That's all I can remember from my childhood.
And then, so in terms of, I guess, your experience at school, because it's a slightly different approach to I guess, academics while being a professional, but your approach at school, was it all sport, or was it GCSEs come first, academics come first, or how was that handled in the family?
My mum always used to go on at me, say, you're getting your education. I always used to go back, I'm going to be a footballer. And she was like, no, you're not. You're going to university. But having seen my older brothers and sisters go to university and come back, that they just seem like they're having the time of their lives. So it's something that I wanted to do as well. I wanted to leave home and go away and stay at university from a young age because I saw my brothers and sisters do it and looked like they're having a great time. So it is something that I focused on as well, my education. I was very much get my education done as quickly as possible. So homework and that, I would rush through it, do it as quickly as possible, and then head out and play football.
You alluded to it there in terms of university. What was that transition? So talking about GCSEs into college, etc. Or was it YTS at that time for you? What was that looking like when you were 16, 17, 18 years old?
Well, I was a young player. So I started playing for Norwich City at the age of 9. They had a centre of excellence at Potter's Bar, so just down the road from me. And so they had a centre of excellence in Potter's Bar and then obviously a centre of excellence in Norwich at that time. And I was there from the age of 9 to 16. And I got released when I was 16, so I didn't get a YTS. I did get offered a YTS. And I actually left home at 16 to go and join a YTS scheme at Cambridge City. So I moved to Cambridge and stayed in digs with a lady, one other player and a lady who put us up in Cambridge. And they had a programme that aligned themselves to a sixth form college that allowed the players to do A-levels alongside a full-time football programme.
Nice.
So I got my A-levels there. And that was quite rare at the time. There weren't many.
I was going to say, it's quite common now, right? There's a lot of programmes running, but back then, not so much.
But still, I'd say programs that allow kids to do A-levels is still quite rare.
Sorry, yes, I'm thinking post-16, but it's not specifically, the 3 A-levels, 5 A-levels, whatever.
Yeah. So, I did that. And
so just a question on that. What was it like in terms of, you said Centre of Excellence back there at Norwich, and then this kind of YTS programme? I'm not revealing your age now. People can Google it if they want to check it out. But at that time, was it totally different to what you'd see now in terms of an academy structure and the YTS? I'm imagining like cleaning boots and stuff. Was that still in place or not so much back then?
Yeah, it was, yeah. In that respect, totally different to what it is now.
Because do you think, we're going to get into it, and obviously in terms of athletes moving on after their careers, but is that, I guess, lessons learned during that period, did you take that forward into your career and stuff after that? Or, kind of self-discipline and that, like being told what to do, I guess? There
was plenty of good to come from those days, plenty of things that hardened you to what it takes to be a footballer and to get on in life. But there was always the odd occasion where it would go over the line.
Right.
And I think those occasions have ruined it now.
Yeah, I get you. So, all those lessons that could have been learned, they're not in place anymore, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it would effectively be called child labour now, pretty much, and probably bullying at times. But certain aspects of it did really harden you to the reality of not only football, but the reality of life and how hard and ruthless it can be. But there was occasions where it would have happened in every single club when I was that age, that it would go over the line. I remember I used to dread walking into like the first team dressing room because you would get stuff thrown at you or booted, kicked on the way out, got forced to sing a song or take your clothes off or all those different types of things. You would get forced to do it. So you used to dread going into the first team dressing room. You really did. But the majority of it was, looking back at it, was harmless fun and actually would toughen you up. But like I said, there were occasions where it just went over the line. And unfortunately, those occasions then come into the public domain and then it all stops.
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk about it in terms of players and their, I guess, their journeys through sport, and the ones who are lucky enough to choose to call it a day, or the ones who kind of, it's a surprise to them and where they stand when their sporting career is over. But for you, how did it start then in terms of football? So you're at the YTS 2-year program, and straight after were you picked up by a club, or what was the process? Yeah,
it was a 2-year program. I achieved my A-levels. I applied to go to Loughborough and achieved the good enough grades to go to Loughborough University. But I did have a year out. I had a year out trying to make it as a pro footballer, really. So I signed a contract with Cambridge City. So they offered me a deal after my 2-year program. And they're a part-time club, so not a full-time club. Their academy or their youth team system was full-time, but their first team was part-time. So they gave me a job coaching in the community alongside that. So I stayed, they carried on putting me up in digs. By that time, it was a big house. We had 3 houses just full of the youth team. And we had someone who lived in with us. So that was carnage.
And the stories there, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Skip them.
Yeah, that was carnage. Yeah, so I had a year of coaching, playing for Cambridge City's first team, hoping that I would do well enough to get offered a professional contract somewhere. But with the fallback option that I just deferred my place at Loughborough for a year. So that's what I did. I didn't obviously do well enough to become a professional footballer that year. So I went to university. I went to Loughborough.
So when you joined up at Loughborough, you just, I guess, fully embracing the uni lifestyle and that freshers year, and I guess were you playing for the uni? You must have been playing for the first team at the uni, right?
Yeah, playing for the first team there. I also carried on playing for Cambridge City part-time. Right. So I would travel down there after my lectures on Tuesday night to go and train, travel down Thursday night to go and train, and then play on a Saturday. And there was occasions where I'd probably be hungover and I'd call Cambridge City and said, I can't come down this week. But yeah, Loughborough was brilliant. The chief executive at the time at Cambridge City came up and viewed all the facilities and met the first team coach, and the football at Loughborough was basically treated as a full-time football club, really. We would train pretty much every day. We'd have a match on Wednesdays. We'd be up at 6 a.m. in the gym because we'd have to get a gym session in before lectures. And as soon as lectures finished, we would have a training session. It was pretty full on and brilliant. The facilities were amazing. I loved it. We pretty much won the Boosa Championship every single year I was there, the British Universities Championship every year. And it was brilliant. And yeah, fully embracing the student lifestyle as well. I pretty much had the best of both worlds, being a footballer, being paid to play football from Cambridge still, and being a student. And we were out Monday nights, Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, and Saturday nights. Proper living the university lifestyle. And at the same time, I was being paid to play football.
Awesome. So what did you study then when you were at Loughborough? Was it, I'm going to talk about career now, but what was it that you studied while you were at uni?
I did a joint honours degree, so sports science and maths.
Nice and easy maths. Yeah.
Like I said, with my schoolwork, I always was one to rush it so I could play football. So I always needed to have a right and wrong answer, because as soon I could move on then. So I was always good at subjects that had a right and a wrong answer.
Yeah, so humanities isn't calling you yet.
Yeah, even English, if I have to write an essay, it would just, in my head, it's going to take me too long to even think about what to write. So I just need questions in front of me that I can do quickly. No, I either get the right or wrong answer. And that feedback I needed as well. I didn't need a subjective feedback of what does someone think about the story I've just written. I needed someone to look at that, look at my working and say, yeah, you got it right because of this, or you got it wrong, and then I'll show you in your working where you got it wrong. That's how my brain works.
That's how you're wired, yeah.
Yeah. So maths was perfect for me in that sense.
So while at uni then, you still with Cambridge. How did it transition after uni then? You went into, because I know you've had a long career in the pro game. So was it straight from graduation, kind of you have it all lined up, or what was the kind of genesis of that?
I actually became a professional footballer after my second year at university.
Right, so you still had a year, was it 1 year left, 2 years left?
Still had 1 year left.
Right.
And I had a big meeting so I moved from Cambridge City, who were a part-time team, to Cambridge United, who were a full-time professional football club. And I had a big conversation with them and a few meetings with them about whether they'd let me finish my last year at uni. And again, invited them up to Loughborough so they could check out the facilities and meet the coach that I could potentially train with up there, instead of going back every day to train with them. And I'm very, very lucky that they agreed to let me finish my degree and get my training with Loughborough, and then essentially just go back on Saturdays and play for them in a match.
I'm assuming the facility, Loughborough facilities, like you said, are awesome and they've continued to get better and better. But at that time, were they probably superior to what the club had at that time in terms of training facilities? The
gym, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt, the gym was. And the Cambridge United had a really good pitch and training facility. So I wouldn't necessarily say it was better, but it was all in one place. Cambridge United used to use all the different university grounds to train. So we'd go to the stadium and then they'd let us know which college we were training that day and we'd drive there or get a minibus there. Whereas at Loughborough, it was their own, and it was brilliant.
Cool. So obviously, I'm assuming you graduated and straight into living the life of a professional footballer. And in terms of, I guess, for the listeners and those that haven't followed your career, generally in and around Championship level, right? You kind of Championship League One level for most of the time, or clubs that are known for being in that.
Well, that one, I spent one season with Cambridge United. That season, I finished my degree, and it was probably it was my best goal scoring season in professional football. Still to this day, I scored 17 goals, and I had a bad knee injury during that season, so I didn't play many games. I think I scored 15 goals in the last 15 games of the season, and I got moved to the Championship. Played like Coventry. Ian Dowie came to watch. He was manager at Coventry at the time. Came to watch me in my last few games for Cambridge. So I finished at Cambridge that season in the May. I graduated in the July, and I signed for Coventry City in the Championship that same month.
So a bit of a whirlwind, yeah.
Yeah, I spent 2 seasons in the Championship. I think I spent about six or seven in League One, and then 5 in League Two before I retired from professional football.
So I'm guessing, obviously, during that time, you got just someone like Coventry, Brentford, Huddersfield, Oldham, Leyton Orient, like really like household names out there. During that time, I don't want to just, I guess, gloss over your career, but talking about Laps and how that came about. I'm really interested to know, I guess, the thought process. Was there a moment when you were playing when you thought, right, I need to start looking at what's next for me? You probably more than most, because you've done your degree, you already had an eye on that after your pro career finished. But was there anything that stands out to me? Oh, I need to start looking at the future now.
To be honest, though, on that, I didn't really think about life beyond football. I didn't at the start. I really didn't. I thought I was playing in the Championship. I'm gonna hopefully get to the Premier League and I won't have to worry. That was my mindset at the time. But there was a particular, in actual fact, my first day in at Coventry, I was sat down in the change room next to 2 players, like 30-plus-year-old players. One was Stephen Hughes, who I'm a big Arsenal fan. So Stephen Hughes played for Arsenal, was part of the Invincibles squad, won the Premier League not too long ago, really, before he joined Coventry. And Arjan Dazou was the other one, who, again, at the time was a pretty household name, played in the Premier League for Wigan. And they were speaking about retiring and what they're going to do after football. And in my head at the time, I'm thinking, why the hell are you worried about what you're going to do after football? You've both played in the Premier League. Stephen, you've won the Premier League and you were at Arsenal. Surely you don't have to worry about what you're going to do. But that conversation, just them worrying about what they're going to do beyond football, really did maybe subconsciously stay with me. But it wasn't until a personal experience at Oldham that I really, it was the moment that I thought I needed to set Laps up, really. And I was out of contract at Oldham, and I had a pretty good season, thought I was one of Oldham's best players, and I wanted to try and progress in my career anyway. So Oldham didn't offer me a new deal, but at the same time, I don't think I would have stayed if they did offer me one, because I wanted to go to a bigger and better club. So I went on trial with Blackburn. I was at trial for the majority of that pre-season and into the season, but eventually didn't get offered a deal from them. Then I went to Doncaster, then I went to Sheffield Wednesday and didn't get offered any deals there either. I was close at Sheffield Wednesday, but then they signed, the day before they said they were going to offer me something, they signed Connor Wickham. So that was out of the water.
How does that work then, that process? You're on trial and they say went into the season. Is this like the season started and you're still trialling out at other clubs?
Yeah, I was going to their games, sort of watching, I was training with them every day, like basically being a player of theirs, but without a signed contract, so I couldn't play for them.
Right.
I'd play in like the friendly games during the week if they organised any. Yeah, so
it's got to be a pretty stressful time then, because I guess security is, obviously I don't know how it feels, but like if you've got a contract and you're just going to work every day, but then if that's gone and you don't have that security blanket, I suppose, sort of safety net.
I wasn't being paid, so I was still living my same lifestyle, thinking that I'd get a new contract one day. So just eating into my savings. I was quite good with my money. Like I say, my dad worked at Barclays for 40 years. So if I wasn't good with my money, he'd have something to say. Yeah. So I saved a large chunk of money throughout the years prior to that. But they were quickly going, the lifestyle I was living at the time was pretty heavy. So the savings were going down quite rapidly. And that hit home. And obviously, when I didn't get offered a contract and I kind of had enough of trialing, I was just going to the gym on my own every day, trying to keep fit, waiting for the phone to ring with an offer, or waiting for my agent to ring. And I did have offers. I did have offers to sign for clubs, but none of them, I was still in the mindset, especially up until the season started and maybe a month into the season had started, that I wanted to go to a bigger and better club. And I was still on trial as well. So I was turning down offers from lesser clubs or clubs in lower leagues. But it did get to a point where I then went back to the clubs that did offer me deals and said, right, I'd like to sign for you.
They're still in for me. Yeah. Were they still there? Were all them offers still on the table then or not?
No, none of them.
I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah, so they said, well, you said no, so we went and got someone else.
Yeah.
And our budget's used up now. So then again, just carried on training by myself. But I really thought, right, that could be the end of my football career then, because I've played this totally wrong. And my own fault, really, partly my own fault. But it was at that moment where I thought, right, if I'm not going to be a footballer, or that realisation, right, this is how quickly a football career can end. Even when you think you're sort of on the cusp of getting a move to a bigger and better club.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming you, like you said, in shape. No, I don't know what the injury history was like, but like you coming towards your prime. I don't know how old were you around that time? You coming towards your prime?
Yeah, pretty much in my prime. Yeah, 27.
Yeah, so it's come out of nowhere in terms of what you're thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was tough, and that was a big light bulb moment for me. Really, that there wasn't really enough support there for if that was the end of my football career. Even though I had a degree behind me, even though I was pretty good with my money and had a fair sort of bit of a safety net financially there in terms of living, I was still really, really anxious and worried every single day. Like my now wife, their girlfriend would come home from work and say, "Oh, have you got a job today?" I'd be like, "No." I'd be like, "No."
I guess that's that thing as well, because the clock's ticking as well during the season as well. It's like, there's only so much time before everyone needs to get their squad sorted or whatever. So it's like
following everybody's results. Those teams that aren't scoring, I'm on my agent saying, "Oh, this team hasn't scored. This team hasn't scored today. Give them a call, see if they want me." I eventually picked up the phone to Leyton Orient, who were in for me in the summer and did offer me a deal in the summer. And they were top of League One at the time. And I just said, I'd called him, the manager up, Russell Slade, and went, "I'll come and play for you for nothing." This was in the November. I just said, "Look, just give me a deal to the January. I'll play for nothing. I just need to get back playing." And I thought if I got back playing, got into the side at Leyton Orient, who were top of League One, then whether they offered me a new deal or not, someone else would see me playing at the top of the League One and offer me something.
Yeah, in the shop window for sure. Obviously, you got back in at Leyton Orient, but was that, like you said, that was you thought about laps initially? Did you move on it then, or was it more towards the end of your career when you thought, right, let's put something in place? Because who does give the support in that? Is it just your agent and family and stuff, family and friends who are supporting you at that point when you're kind of in that same scenario? I'm guessing there's plenty of players that happens to. Or...
I actually looked at the time, and so the PFA, they give you a call and ask you whether you wanted to be placed on what they call the transfer list, which is a list of players that are without a club that previously were with a club. So basically out of contract players. And I said yes. And then I emailed them back and said, "Oh, actually, like, I am without a club and I'm struggling to get a club. Like, what are my options in terms of finding a new career?" And they said to me, "Have I done my coaching badges?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I've got one of my coaching badges. I could probably do more." And they were like, "Do your coaching badges?" So I was like, "Right, okay." And that was it, conversation over. So they didn't ask me like what I was interested in, what previous qualifications I had. That was the conversation.
Right. I'm hoping I'm guessing that must have moved on a bit now from then, or not on the club support. Like,
I think it has moved on a little, yeah. But I think there's still so much more that they could do. Hence why I set up Laps, really, because I felt like that was really bad from their perspective in terms of being a player union there for the players' welfare. I thought it was really bad. And someone said to me, "Oh, you should set up a LinkedIn profile at that time." So I did. I set up a LinkedIn profile and connected with anyone and everyone that would connect with me. But it wasn't until I met with... So I always had that in my head about there wasn't enough support and something better needed to be put in place. And at the end of that season, I signed back to Cambridge United. And that first season, I connected with a Cambridge United fan on LinkedIn, and he reached out to me. And he was a recruiter by trade, an internal recruiter. And I met him for a coffee. And he said that he had 3 or 4 companies ask him to recruit them sports people, but he didn't really know how to get to them or whether that was a need. And then I kind of shared with him, well, funnily enough, you say that, I think there should be miles more support for sports people transitioning from sport into, well, it was football at the time, transitioning from football into new careers, because it needs to happen quickly for the majority. So it was interesting from his perspective that I showed him that there wasn't enough support, or there wasn't a go-to place for sports people to find normal work. And then it was interesting for me to hear from him how desirable sports people are in the working world by businesses to recruit. So that's, I guess, that was the spark that ignited Laps to be born, really. And me and Rob together stayed in touch and did research on not only football, but other sports. Naturally sort of did some research into traits that footballers show that they probably don't even know that they show or they have. And then, we raised some funding over the next 18 months or so, and Laps was born.
So when that initial, I know good time to talk about Laps and kind of what it looks like today. But initially, was it purely that kind of recruitment placement angle when you first started, or are we kind of going out specifically looking for certain roles, or was it the membership type organisation?
It was planned originally just to be an online job board where companies could pay to post jobs who are specifically looking to recruit athletes into those jobs. And it would be an online platform for athletes knowing that they can go to, and they'd see jobs advertised from companies that are actively looking to recruit sports people.
What type of roles was it then? Was it so many transferable skills, life of an athlete and kind of discipline, commitment and competitiveness? What roles was it? Was it like specifically, I'm thinking sales roles, right? Was it really competitive sales roles like that where you need to have that hunger and that drive, or was it wide variety of?
It was to begin with. So those 3 initial companies that sort of asked Rob to recruit sports people for them, one of them actually recruited a former Olympic rower into a sales role, and within 3 months had broken their sales records for that year. and promoted him. And then I think he got another promotion after that, and they just reached out to Rob and said, we want another one of, and he was like, what, you want another Olympic rower? And they were like, well, no, any sportsman or woman. So yeah, sales roles are quite prominent, like you say, because of that drive, competitive nature. A whole host of, like throughout the period of Laps, a whole host of roles have become available for sports people and that they're excelling at. And that was one of our bits of research that we did over the 18 months before we launched. We researched what careers former sports people have gone into. And then we went and little 10-minute videos with them about what they're doing now and how their sports careers help them do what they do now, and what their day-to-day looks like, what their weeks looks like, what was their starting salary, what could their salary potentially get to, what qualifications they had to do either before getting that career or during it, alongside it. All these key bits of information that the sports people need, anybody needs to know how to maybe get into that career. Yeah, and those little 10-minute videos have been really popular on our site from sports people watching them. So
from that initial job board, how different are things now, obviously, in terms of the offer and the business model? Obviously, you've got the job board still in place, right? Or maybe in a different format, but how's it grown from that initially? And I guess anyone listening, you've got loads of business owners listening and athletes, whether they're pro or semi-pro, how do they plug into it?
Yeah, it was pretty clear early on that just having a job board wasn't enough, because athletes would be scared that they wouldn't be good enough for these roles. And when the job roles get posted, it'll have a list of criteria that you have to have, or preferably have.
And if you've got your CVs like 10 years at professional sport, but nothing in the business world. Yeah,
exactly. And so it was pretty clear right away that we needed to help these athletes writing CVs. And because otherwise they'd just have, I played football or I played sport. And they wouldn't actually then go into detail about, I was a captain, so I showed good leadership skills. I gave team talks. I can all these type of things. And so we created like our own CV builder on the platform that they can log into with hints and tips from us. Then there was interview technique. So sports people not only haven't written a CV probably since they were 16, a lot of them, they definitely haven't gone to an interview. So
I guess if they're media trained as well, there's going to have some dry answers and non-committal dry answers in there as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So interview technique was key. We've got a whole page on interview technique now. And then obviously experience is quite crucial. So we reach out to companies who want to offer work experience to our members, whether that be in their off season or when they get their day off each week, just getting in and work shadowing or getting some work experience, desk hopping maybe in the company. We then realised obviously qualifications is an issue. So we've got a courses section now where course providers and universities advertise their courses to our members, and predominantly quite a lot of them are distance learning, or maybe you have to go in one day a week like I mentioned. But that was really key for us to get that, because a lot of footballers, for example, not so much in other sports, but that they leave school when they're 16 and all they get given in terms of education is a BTEC in sports science, which we kind of alluded to earlier, when they're in the youth team. So in terms of education, and they maybe haven't got that. So that was something we definitely needed. And then so in terms of actually the model, we expanded it during lockdown. We felt like during lockdown that there would be a lot more hand-holding needed. So we created our recruitment arm, so our placement service, we call it, which is basically lapse recruitment agency, where companies can send us job roles and then we would sift through our membership to get candidates that we feel would be suitable for that job role and prep them and then hand over sort of the best 2 or 3 to them. And then obviously that model's slightly different. Rather than paying for a job advert, you're paying a recruitment agency fee for first year salary.
And I'm assuming, I know it's been successful, but I'm interested in the membership, kind of the membership profile almost, or I mean numbers. What type of numbers are you looking at the moment for your membership? And this is across all sports now, right? You expanded to any professional sport, yeah? Yeah,
all sports, yeah. We've got just shy of 5,000 members, and they range from 18-year-olds all the way through to 55-year-olds.
Right, so people who left sport a long time ago maybe just wanted to be in the community, yeah.
That's it, yeah. So we try and categorise it into 4 areas. One is a current sports person planning for the future. The next category would be current sports person but nearing the end of my sporting career. The next one would be I've just retired from professional sport. I'm actively looking for a career. And then the last category would be I'm a retired sports person in a new career, however, open to looking at new options.
It is, yeah. And do you, because it's great, like to me, I'm hearing screaming about there was those gaps before you started, but now do you have like accredited or partnerships with national government NGBs and stuff? Because I know obviously funding's always tight in certain sports and they might not have the resources to create something like you have. Do they try and plug in their athletes or anyone they're funding now on lottery fund or anything, they plug them into you to say, look, this is where you want to be part of this community if you're looking for the future?
Yeah, I would say that a lot of governing bodies are quite standoffish with us, because although I've tried to design laps where I feel like the governing bodies can utilise laps as their own service to their athletes or players, I think there is still a bit of apprehension that they should be doing it themselves.
Got it. So they maybe they don't want to be seen as like just fobbing it off to you guys, even though you're doing a great job. They need to do like a duty of care or something internally. Yeah,
and I've tried, and I'm still trying to make that not the case. I'm trying to get these governing bodies to utilise laps as part of their service, because I know, being a player, if the PFA said, "Oh yeah, we work with laps on this. They're great. They do this. Let me introduce you to them," I would then think, "Oh, fair play to the PFA. They've partnered with this company that's great, that's specific."
Yeah, they've like looked at the market, what's out there, and this is the best. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't see any negative to it, but obviously there is still some elements of that within the governing bodies. But they do support us in other ways. So just last week, end of last month, we held 2 big careers fairs where we got loads of companies to exhibit and present their opportunities to sports people, and then we obviously invited all of our membership to be there, and that was in support with, it was predominantly for young footballers, and that the main reason for that was because we got the most support from the league football education. on it.
Right.
And
It's just Old Trafford, wasn't it? Is that where you hosted it? Old Trafford,
yeah, we had one at Old Trafford and one at Twickenham Stadium.
Right.
So, but it was also sort of supported by the Premier League and the PFA. But although the majority of the support came from the LFE with a bit from the Premier League. So it was a big careers fair that we ran, we hosted, and then we do the same with the English Institute of Sport or UK Sport. They asked us to tender for their big careers fairs that they call Athlete Futures, which we won, and we've won for the last 3 years the tender for that. So again, we put on a big careers fair for the athletes at UK Sport from a range of sports, and we get the exhibitors there, and UK Sports send or advertise it to their athletes.
Last one in terms of thinking about future. If you're looking like 3 to 5 years out, I know you've got 5,000 members now, but I'm assuming, and are they all UK based? Or are you looking like globally, or would you feel like your kind of growth strategy is in terms of growing that membership or growing the business?
Yeah, we do have foreign members who reach out and sort of hear about laps, whether that be online or whatnot. And I say to them that you're more than welcome to become a member. There will be some stuff that's really relevant on our platform. However, we are UK based and very UK centric. Although in the future we do hope to expand and have a Laps Australia or Laps South Africa or Laps US. So I would love to have laps in every country, really.
Yeah, it makes sense. I guess the demand's there across the board, and especially, and some of the stories like out of the US and stuff in terms of, I don't know, American football, things like that. After it's a big, I guess, really cutthroat industry in the pro game over there. So I'm assuming there's huge opportunities for you.
Laps US would be my dream. I'd love that.
Definitely. I'm going to change pace a little bit there and ask you a bit about yourself in terms of like I'm assuming being an ex-pro, fitness is a massive part of your day-to-day routine, but is there anything else that you use or to kind of stay on top form? And are you out running every morning before you start work, or what's the kind of the general routine to keep you at top form?
No, do you know what? I've got no motivation at all. I'm still a manager of a part-time football team. So I part-time manage Chelmsford City in the National League South. And if it wasn't for still being involved in football in that sense and joining in training, I don't think I'd have motivation to do it. I was very much, when I finished full-time so the off-season now, for example, I won't do much at all fitness other than play golf unless I force myself to enter fitness challenges. Last summer I entered fitness challenges throughout May and June, and you have to hit certain targets it's the actual fact. If you don't hit the targets, you have to buy a crate of beer for everybody who does.
I can see that, because obviously once you've trained when you've been performing at a real high level, just training for the sake of it, or just going to the gym to keep the weight off, or do you know what I mean? It's going to be difficult to get up for it. I can see that. Do
you know what? It's hard, like to keep your body for so long at an elite level, or try to an elite level, to maintain that elite fitness level for over a decade. Like, it's hard, and it only gets tougher and tougher the longer you do it. So when it finishes, it was kind of like a relief to me that I didn't have to put my body through that to stay at the elite level. It was actually a really nice relief not to have to get out of bed and think, right, I've got to push my body to the limit again today.
But so you've got to be at a certain level to not get embarrassed in training, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I took probably from my first injury when I was at Coventry, I had a bad injury. I ruptured my hamstring, and probably that was 2008, I think. Probably from 2008 to 2019, so 11 years, I don't think there was a day from that moment that went by that I didn't take painkillers or anti-inflammatories. That's until I retired, and I thought, right, I don't have to be pain-free to push myself to the limit today. I can handle a bit of pain and
try and recover a little bit better as well.
Yeah. So that's it takes its toll on you mentally and obviously your body as well.
2 more questions, Matt. I'm really interested in terms of how you've transitioned. So in terms of running a company now, leading a company, new company with RS19, so that's more of an agency basis, isn't it, in terms of running both those. How difficult has that been? Obviously, desk-based now and office-based, that type of thing. Is that a huge step away from what you're doing day in, day out, obviously training and playing?
Yeah, massive. So I would say that Laps has always been my kind of passion project, my kind of giving back or filling a void that I had that I don't want others to go through or experience, or try and bridge that sort of void anyway. So I never wanted to see Laps as a day job of mine. I want it to be a company or a passion project that runs alongside my day job. So I can very much consider my day-to-day job now. It's obviously not a footballer anymore. It is RS19, lifestyle financial planning. So I knew that, you always get asked that question when you are a footballer. What would you be if you weren't a footballer? You always used to get asked that question. And without even thinking, I would say a financial advisor. And I didn't know what a financial advisor entailed or anything like that. I just thought, my dad worked in the finance sector, so I'm quite interested in it. I'm good at maths and numbers. It kind of makes sense. So I just said it without knowing anything about it. I just used to say that. That was my answer all the time. So as I neared the end of my career, I thought, right, I always said it. Let's now do some research into it, especially after setting up Laps. I could easily find information on what it took to be a financial advisor, and got myself qualified, and then spent some time in the field with learning and practicing and training. And then 2019, the same year that I retired from professional football, I launched RS19.
And with that one as well, I'm assuming you get a lot of sports clients coming to you, but are you serving the wider public for financial services, or is it just like ex-players or players looking at what they're going to do with their earnings while they're playing?
Yeah, it's anybody that feels like they would benefit from financial planning. And trust me, that's everyone, whether they know it or not. You don't have to have a large war chest of cash ready to invest. There's lots of aspects of financial planning that people don't realize they might need or want. And it is obviously, naturally, my clientele is sports people and small and medium business owners. They are naturally my network already from Laps and from football. But I've got an 80-year-old client who used to work in fashion. So, yeah, it ranges from, he's my eldest client, an 80-year-old, but I've also got a just turned 18-year-old who wants to be a graphic designer when he's older. So it varies.
Yeah, it's never too early to start planning, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Robbie, last question for me. We always ask this reflective question for all the guests. And if you could go back, so if you've got a time machine, you can go back to speak to yourself when you were, say, 19, 20 years old and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Sign for Bradford. No, I say that because I turned down Bradford to re-sign for Oldham, and that second season at Oldham Bradford got to the League Cup final and got promoted that season, and Oldham just about survived relegation. And then obviously I left them that summer, and that was like my time of... Yeah,
it's the sliding doors. But maybe if you never did that, you wouldn't have set up Laps and all the stuff that you're doing now.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Robbie, appreciate your time, man. Thanks so much for coming on the show. We will link in the show notes. And like you said, obviously the clientele is anyone, but in terms of sport and sports business owners, we've got a lot of those guys listening to the show. So hopefully they'll be in touch to get some financial planning advice, man.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to this week's show. You can subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can write to us at dryphase.podcast@coordinate.cloud, tweet us at coordinatesport, or follow us on Instagram at coordinate_sports, or on my account at James_ventures. This episode was produced by Nancy Kwamboka, with support from Claire Goodchild and Lola Small, with special thanks to Rochelle. I'm James Moore, and you've been listening to The Drive Phase from Coordinate Sport.